on here today working with you to make sure that everything moves smoothly today, and we've got a great program for you. This is, a program that's very near and dear to my heart, a program that I have built my entire career upon. And part of the reason that we actually built this series of webinars was intended for one sole purpose, which is to bring together a community of learning and a resource opportunity for you as individual originators, real estate professionals, to be able to take your business to a completely different level. And in doing so, we've provided, we're just approaching our 60th episode in the series that we launched back in October of 2014, or 2012, October of 2012. So we are now well into the series. Today's program is really going to be focused on one core concept, which is how to power up your purchase partnerships. And like I said, this is an area that is near and dear to my heart, a program that I have built and executed and developed over the 13, 14 plus years of my career, both as an originator, as a trainer and developer. I've studied the model and implemented and executed this model with literally thousands of audience members in our workshops, live events, webinar series, and one-on-one coaching programs that we've been implementing as a training and development company over the last, since we launched the Maximum Acceleration Company in 2009. And, I want to start today's program by jumping right into it. The title of the program is Power Up Your Purchase Partnerships, How to Make 1 and 1 11. The reality is that we're talking about leverage and synergy here. We're talking about creating strategic alliances with other like-minded professionals in a wide array of business services or categories that all intersect with people when they are at a time where it's appropriate for that family to make a change in their housing situation, or even, from that perspective, even real estate investors or people who are trying to build wealth through real estate. So anybody in the financial services industry, anybody that has impact with people making employment changes, anybody who is at a growth stage in their life and wants to achieve something better as a family, and any professional who intersects with families when they are in a position to make those kinds of changes in their life is a potential business development partner, a potential resource or alliance partner that we can build with. And by the way, there's a key point or phrase here, or definition I want to clear the air with. I use the term business development professional. I used to use the term referral partner. Many of you have heard of realtors, financial planners, CPAs, and insurance agents, et cetera, as referral partners. The reason I consciously made a shift about a year ago in referring to those types of alliance partners as a business development partner is mainly from one point of view. I wanted to shift my focus and my concentration from being one of a vendor seeking a deal and begging for business on the taking side of the relationship first, to one where I am on the giving side of the relationship first, where I am seeking to be an asset to that partner. My goal is not necessarily to talk to agents about their referrals. My goal is to talk with them about something way more valuable than the ability to get any one deal closed. I want to become a resource or asset to them that's going to enable them and us to establish the kind of partnership with a high degree of loyalty and commitment where we can achieve a lot more together by leveraging each other's strengths than either of us could hope to achieve separately or independently. Let me show you an example of what this really means to me. I mean, there's an old Jewish proverb that says, plans fail where there is no counsel, but succeed when counselors are many. And there's a couple of different layers that we're going to explore to that, what the dynamic of that relationship really is all about, and how to create it systematically, strategically, and purposefully. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you some of what I've accumulated knowledge-wise and information and systems that we've built through tens of thousands of hours, if not hundreds of thousands of hours of hands-on work with mortgage professionals in all sectors of the business across all regions of the United States, Guam, Puerto Rico, and other areas, including London and the Netherlands and Australia, in addition to the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of man-hours spent in one-on-one coaching sessions with clients, in live workshops and events that have created the base of knowledge that we have the opportunity to share with you, the refinement of the systems through that mass of work. And what I've tried to do is drill it down to the simplest, easiest concepts for you to understand that you can begin to walk away from and implement immediately from today's call. So the first thing that we need to define is what really is a true partnership. What's the difference between a relationship and a partnership? You know, far too often I meet with and talk to loan officers and realtors who have a very misguided understanding about what a partnership is. So the best way I've found to explain it is by thinking about draft horses. You know, when I was a kid growing up in the Midwest near St. Louis, you know, we had these, you know, Budweiser Clydesdales based out of St. Louis at Grant's Farm. It would be in every Christmas parade and Thanksgiving parade, and I just was fascinated by these amazing animals. Well, in high school, I did a research study, and I realized that there was a weight test sled study done by a group of scientists right around the early 1900s, and what they were testing was some way of coming up with a large unit of force, a measurement for a large unit of force. It was what came to be known as horsepower studies, and eventually that's what became the term horsepower. Well, long story short, the scientists realized that one horse by himself could pull about 12,000 pounds of coal. So two horses working independently, you would expect a minimum of double the results, or 24,000 pounds of pull. But the scientists, when they began to scale the study up, ran into a big problem because they realized that two horses hitched together could pull a lot more than one independently, a lot more than double in all reality. You see, the record is over 104,000 pounds of pull, or roughly 8 times the results of one pulling by himself. So let's take a look at what the typical referral relationship looks like in a mortgage and real estate world, in the real estate business that we're in today. You know, when we're talking about purchase business, you know, we are talking about deals that more often than not are going to be done in conjunction with realtors. Now, if we approach a realtor and we start to team up on a more transactional type referral-based relationship, what will often happen is, let's say we've got a typical realtor with 15 leads he can refer to us and 15 leads that we can refer to him. And if we are perfectly one-to-one, tit-for-tat, you send me a deal, I'll send you a deal, and we'll count scorecard type situation, we might be able to generate about 30 deals a month. Now, here's the problem. There's no loyalty or alliance to that, and often we become only as good as our last deal. The reality is we've got to try and transform that relationship to where it's really two working for the same goal, in conjunction with, you know, with a total focus and commitment. So if that takes place and we're truly in alliance, both of us focus on the same goal, and the 8 times results rule holds true, then that means that we could be generating upwards of 120 leads a month. Now, the reality of that is many of you on this call are thinking I'm full of crap at this moment. You're thinking that's not even possible. It's you know, that's a overstretching or overreaching target. But the reality is, I want you to suspend that thought for just a moment and begin to ask the question, okay, it may not be possible or practical, but if it was, what would it look like? See, if you could flip your mindset into a solutions-oriented and investigative level of curiosity for the next 20 to 30 minutes, I can show you a number of ways that you could go a lot further than just a 30-deal month, tit-for-tat referral type relationship. So let's go back to the horses for just a moment. Let's look at what the dynamic of those two horses are looking at together for just a second. You see, the reality is, you notice a couple of things if you study this picture a little bit. First thing you notice is that they have blinders on, right? They're totally focused on a common goal, going in a uniform and aligned direction. Secondly, you'll notice is that there's some geometry and physics involved with the stretching of distance and the leveraging of combined force on a single point of impact. There's some other tools and techniques that become a part of that as well. And one of the other core concepts, and I don't understand all the geometry involved, it was way over my head when I began to study it, but the one thing I did realize is that there's a concept called leverage involved. You guys have heard this term in business plenty times before, but the reality is the word leverage comes from a simple machine, a tool called a lever. You got two parts to that machine. You've got you know, a bar and a pivot point, right? Now, if that pivot point is right in the middle, I can push down with 100 pounds of force over here, and I only get 100 pounds of lift over here, and I'm not really doing any value because I'm not using the tool properly. But all of a sudden, if I shift that pivot point a couple feet to one side, all of a sudden I can push down with 100 pounds of effort here, and I get over 1,000 pounds of lift on this side because I'm creating a 10-to-1 mechanical advantage. So what is the leverage of building strategic alliances with realtors, financial planners, CPAs, family law attorneys, human resource directors at larger employers in your area, and any of the other potential alliance partners that we can pair up with, team up with, and create synergy among to create massive growth? Well, the first thing we've got to understand is we've got to understand how to change the value conversation. Part of it begins with what, the question that we've got to be prepared to answer with every new alliance partner we approach is the why should I work with you? Now, how many of you have actually gone to, and think about in all honesty, when you approach a new potential business development partner, and let's just use realtors as the base example for the time being, and I know many of you think that realtors are not that fun to work with and you want to do everything you can to find purchase business without a realtor, and we'll talk about a number of strategies on how to do that. But just remember that in the real estate business, just like everything else, we're looking for the 5%ers. Because 5 to 10% of the population does 90% of the volume in any market. And we're only looking for the 1 out of 10 that's a true professional who's committed to a high level of ethical operation of their business. So when we approach a potential top producer like that and we start looking at how we can create alliance, the first thing we've got to be prepared to address is what's in it for them. Because that's what they're first and foremost concerned about. So think about value, the value we create for them, the why they should work with us as a mathematical equation for just a minute. Value equals benefit minus cost. Okay? Now, there's two ways to balance this equation, which means value means they see enough value in an alliance with us that they choose to start working with us and building a partnership with us as opposed to any other relationships they've been approached by. Now, the way most loan officers have traditionally done this is typically one of two ways: great products, low pricing, or great service. But here's the problem. What do you think the other 99 loan officers this week who are calling on that real estate office are saying to those realtors? More often than not, aren't they saying the same thing? And even if you do happen to be one of the true professionals who actually can deliver great service and you have a commitment to staying in touch and giving accurate upfront information, setting expectations properly, and communicating effectively throughout the transaction, if you are the 1 out of 100 who actually does that right, even though knowing that 98 out of the 99 promise it but fail to deliver it, do they really believe you when you say, I give great service? And have we elevated our credibility or destroyed it when we associate ourselves with all the other losers and bozos who promise it and fail to deliver it? So we maybe need to look at that from a slightly different perspective. You see, because like I said, value means they participate, they agree, they move forward with us in building a partnership, but we've got to assess what is our true value proposition. Is it something that we can articulate? What is it, first of all, and are we prepared and effective at articulating? Now, keep in mind, there's two ways to balance that equation if it's out of whack. I mean, if the cost seems higher than the benefit, they won't buy. So there's two ways to balance that equation, right? I can lower the cost, or I can increase the benefit. Now, one of the ways that we do this, and here's one of the simplest examples that I can give for this, which is, we can be a vendor or we can be an advisor. Think about for a minute, let's say I've got $10,000 of stock that I want to invest and I want to buy 100 shares of a company that's currently valued at $100 a share. Now, I can go on E-Trade, I can open a trading account, and I can buy those 100 shares for $8 a trade. Or I can go to a full-service investment advisor like a Merrill Lynch or something like that, and I can put that same trade, I can spend that same $10,000 to buy 100 shares of that same company, and likely I'm going to spend around $100 to $150 for that trade. So why would I spend 10 to 15 times more by going to a full-service advisor versus a do-it-yourself E-Trade account? Well, two things. One, the E-Trade account is a very transactional approach, right? My ability to make a wise investment is solely on my own level of commitment to time and research and my own base knowledge of what the right way to value a company is. If I don't have a, and for me personally, it's something I really don't have the time to study in depth, so I'd be literally with better odds if I took that money to Vegas and put it on the roulette table. You can go red or black, or you can go odd or even. You got a 50-50 chance of doubling your money. I don't know if I have that good a chances on E-Trade. If I go to the full-service advisor can give me the knowledge, advice, and guidance on how to value a company, what's important about the investment, what the time horizon of that investment is, and whether that's even a wise choice or not. I mean, for example, let's say I'm all enamored with a particular company that I think is a hot buy, but everybody else on the planet thinks it's a hot buy too, and that stock's way overvalued. Now is not the right time to buy that company. And that advisor says, hold on, slow down. I don't think that particular company is the wisest investment for this time based on your time horizon for investing. You also may want to consider the potential risk of principal here. Are you having, do you have some other reserve resources that if the car blows up or the furnace goes out, that you've got some other capital you can use that would allow you to do this investment strategy longer term? You see, now he's looking out for my best interest long term. He's talking about how to help me make a wiser and likely more successful investment, which is worth thousands of times the value of what the potential trade might be. Because he's helping me not just manage this one transaction, he's helping me manage this as an integral part of a long-term commitment and relationship that's going to be way more valuable than the gain or loss on any one particular investment. So the next thing we got to think about is how do we translate that concept to the idea of an alliance partner? How do we include or incorporate that into the approach that we make to a business development partner, like a realtor, a financial planner, a CPA, a real estate attorney, et cetera, et cetera? Well, one of the best ways I know to do that is to think about two important laws, and they're both called the law of caring. The first one is understanding that people won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I know you guys are all dismissing that because you've heard it a million times, right? You got to be very careful, though, that we don't dismiss cliches, because think about it from this perspective. Cliche becomes a cliche by being repeated thousands and thousands of times, right? We've all heard this: people won't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and we go, oh, right, that's kind of trite, right? To become a cliche, it has to be repeated thousands of times. To be repeated thousands of times, would it have ever been repeated that often to be ignored if it weren't fundamentally true? So we can't afford to dismiss things because we hear them all the time. The likelihood is, if we hear them all the time, there's a fundamental truth to them. So think about that for just a second. What do they care about? What's important to them? What are they trying to accomplish in the next year? What do most real estate agents want to figure out how to overcome in today's environment? In fact, if you want to go ahead and post on some of the recent objections, if you've been out in the market, you've been talking to agents in the last couple of weeks, what are the things that you're hearing out in the market? Feel free to post them in the Q&A and let me know what are some of the challenges that agents are expressing to you. The second law of caring that we've got to focus on and pay attention to is the second one, the bonus. We don't know what we don't know until someone cares enough to show us. I mean, think about it. You guys are all on this webinar because you're the few that are invested. And by the way, I want to applaud you all for investing your time in this type of programming. And I know there's I'm looking at the registration list, and there's several new faces on today's program that are the first time you're hearing us. But the reality of it is there's no way we can know what we don't know, right? There's really only two ways we can begin to get that outside perspective, the stuff that's beyond us, right? Either one, somebody's got to reach out to us and care enough to point out to us that there might be a better, faster, easier way. Or we have to develop enough care and concern for our own safety and security and growth that we seek it out. One of the earliest lessons of my life personally, and I think something that's been a hallmark of my success throughout the years, is, see, I got started in sales around the age of 13. I started doing trade show, timeshare lead generation and credit card sign-ups at trade shows with my stepdad when I was about 13 years old. We would go out 2 or 3 weekends a month during the peak seasons. We would go out and work a show, and I made a pretty decent income as a 13-year-old doing that with my stepdad. But one of the things that my stepdad realized and taught me, one of my first true mentors or advisors in my life, was he used to have a saying, which was go where you're the dumbest guy in the room. And what he meant by that was have a hunger and thirst for knowledge. Go constantly seek out the knowledge of those who've done it better or have already accomplished what you want to accomplish and duplicate it. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. So one of the things that we can do here, and one of the ways in which we could be of more value to our potential business partners, is care enough to ask them what they could be doing different, better, or faster. You know, Mr. Michael Mayer, a good friend of mine and international best-selling author and North America's most preferred real estate agent, is his claim to fame currently, is the reality of the growth, and what Michael talks about is there's 3.5 questions he asks that are the 3.5 most powerful questions at generating referrals. And they basically go through a series of what's your biggest challenge, what have you tried, and how's that been working for you, what are you going to do differently next time, and how can I be an asset or resource to accomplishing that for you. A real simple and clear explanation of, and he shared this with audiences, that we did a live event last week in Danbury, Connecticut, and it resonated with people, and we've already started to see emails and reports from people that they've already added 2 or 3 additional leads to their pipeline in a matter of 2 business days since leaving that summit. And Michael will be sharing a lot more of his tips and techniques with us at an upcoming event. I'll share with you a little bit more later in the program about how to get access to that. But it's all about that one concept. See, when we reach out to those business development partners, we're reaching out seeking to be an asset and resource to them, a partner in helping them achieve the goals that they want to achieve. In reality, it's not just about getting their deals they already have done. I mean, that's the minimum expectation here. The reality is if we focus first on how to get them more deals, we create a level of depth and resonance with those business development partners that goes far beyond the value of any one individual transaction. You know, think about the amount of loyalty that would be created if I take an agent who did 10 deals last year, and by helping them systemize and strategize their sales process, by leveraging my strengths and abilities from a lead filtering standpoint and saving them amount of time on deals that they would otherwise be wasting their time on, and by giving them a strong endorsement at the front end of the deal, as well as incubating some of their maybe leads and filtering out which are their ready now leads, how much more could they improve their growth, even on the existing leads they already have? And how quickly can I become an invaluable asset to them that they feel like they can't afford to allow business to flow anywhere other than through me? Now, if I add to that a couple of ideas and strategies that we can collaborate on, or new projects that we can use to create massive expansion to their marketing reach and significantly increase their lead flow, and take them from an agent who did 10 deals last year to an agent who does 20 deals this year, which is less than 1 extra deal a month if you guys do the math on it, how loyal is that agent going to be to me long term? How much value and credibility will I have? How much more efficient and trustful will that relationship be, that when I call them up and say, hey, we got a problem on this deal and I need your help, they'll jump in and we'll work together as a problem instead of them throwing me under the bus and blaming me for everything? And think about how that would transform the dynamic of the relationships you have with any of the agents that are out there in the market right now. I like the comment from Steve Rice, by the way. The absolute bitter cold weather is something that we'll come up with a unique how to overcome that challenge. First one would be is let their fingers do the shopping kind of concept maybe. There are ways to use some leverage technology to create high-impact buyers, even when it's not so much fun to go out and search for property. Part of that also is, by the way, we'll get into that in just a little bit. Anyway, so here's what I want to share with you for just a second. I want you to think about it from this perspective. Think about Michael Jordan's, the Wayne Gretzky's, and the Tom Brady's of the world. What do they all have in common? Well, the simple answer is they all had somebody who cared as much about their own success, if not more so than they did. They all had somebody to hold them accountable to a higher level of knowledge and a higher standard of performance. It's kind of, often I talk about the transformation cycle of growth, and the reality is that we don't learn or evolve into new behaviors and skills overnight. It takes persistence and it takes refinement. It's just like, if you picked up a cello today, you can't expect to play a Mozart concerto tomorrow, right? It's going to take energy and effort and practice over an extended period of time, and it's going to take the guidance and support of a skilled teacher to even, show you how to hold the bow and how to stroke the string to get the right kind of sound out of it so it doesn't sound like a chicken being choked kind of thing. So what I'm really saying here is think about how you can be an asset and resource and an accountability partner to help improve that potential business development partner's business and how they go about their growth cycle. In 1998, Brigham Young did a research study on ideas to action and what it really takes to create a high probability of implementation. Well, if you read through this list, it starts with, if I think, hey, that's a great idea, that's kind of the awareness phase. Ooh, that sounds cool. I might want to do something with that someday. Got about a 10% chance of growth. If they work through and develop a plan and they say out loud they're going to commit to doing it, they develop a plan of how to do it, and then they tell somebody else, it jumps their chances to about a 6 in 10 chance of getting it done. But if they really want to create the highest levels of performance and commitment that really makes the difference in whether that idea really becomes a part of who and what they do on an ongoing basis for that idea to really stick long term, they've got to set the goal, they've got to outline the plan, they've got to set a target for completion, and they need somebody to help stay up, keep them on track, an accountability partner. If you share that plan and action idea and you ask somebody to follow up with you, or you offer to follow up with a potential business development partner, you create a 9 in 10 chance of actually implementing and executing that idea. So the next thing is, how can you become a partner to these agents that's going to empower them to achieve a significantly higher level of growth? So we can be comfortable going to business development partner and talking to them about the idea of, Mr. Agent, at the end of the day, I don't even really want to talk about your referrals to get started. I mean, getting your deals done is the basic expectation. If I can't do that at a minimum, you wouldn't give me a second deal, and I wouldn't expect you to. What I really want to talk about today is how I can become an asset or resource to you that's going to help you do significantly more business over the coming weeks and months, to where over time we can develop the kind of commitment and loyalty of partnership where we're working together as a team, leveraging the other's strengths to do a lot more than either of us could do separately or independently. Kind of a 1 and 1 is 11 type of effect. So if we can do that, the way that we do that is about creating synergy and accountability. So let's start with, what are the important parts of an accountability partnership, and what does that really look like? Well, the first step is there's somebody who has knowledge and experience and ideas. Now, if you don't have the base knowledge of how to run a successful real estate business, where can you get the knowledge of how to run a successful real estate business? There's thousands of speakers and trainers out there who have a lot of great programming. There's a whole library of resources inside a tool called the Loan Toolbox that talks about 1 million different ways to solve the basic challenges of real estate. There might be a mentor or colleague that you could team up with. Anytime that you have a problem identified, you can research the solution to it. And because you're not caught up in the minutiae of the day-to-day running of that business, more likely than not, you're going to be able to help them see what they can't see for themselves. Another one of those great cliches. You've all heard, we get so busy being busy, we forget to be productive, or, we're so in the weeds with it, where, we can't see the forest for the trees, right? So the second key component of being a good accountability partner to the business development partners that you seek to develop is to help them view their world from the outside in, to be a true resource that allows them to identify, well, is there low volume of sales because they don't have enough leads, or is there low volume of sales because they aren't converting enough of the leads they have? I mean, think about it. There's really only 3 ways to grow a business, right? 1 is to generate more leads, 2 is to convert more of the leads you have, or 3 is to expand your capacity to handle more volume of the first 2. in one of those three areas is where the biggest challenge is in real estate. So the agent who's doing 8 or 10 deals a year, who needs to work on their marketing and sales strategy to refine and improve their sales skills and capture more of the leads they're generating, we can work with. We can help you and support you and guide you through tools and materials that will help you do that at a higher level. The agent who's doing 2 or 3 deals a month, 25 to 30 deals a year, who's stressed out and overwhelmed and can't imagine doing more business, we can help them create better, more efficient systems that can handle a higher capacity of volume. We can help them better filter their front-end leads because more than likely they're probably spending a lot of time with buyers who aren't ready to buy. And we can help them fix that dynamic. But we're having that conversation under the concept of being an asset and resource, a partner in their success. And they're recognizing that we're the catalyst that's creating that ongoing accountability. As we work with them over time and as we commit to meetings and subsequent follow-up meetings where we never leave one meeting without a commitment to the next action plan and the next meeting being scheduled for accountability purposes, we're helping them keep them focused on steady progress and accountability as well. I mean, one of two things will happen between meetings. Either they got everything done and they're ready to talk about the next step, or they got nothing done and that appointment is absolutely vital to making sure that you talk with them about what happened, why, and how to overcome it over the next 2 weeks and get them back on track because they obviously got off track. But the most important element of that is somebody who we have a commitment to, somebody that we feel obligated, and if we don't follow through on the promises we make to them, or they don't follow through on the promises they make to us, they're going to feel guilty. So let's talk about some specific techniques that we can introduce. And I'm going to move around a little bit in the program here and talk a little bit about some of the core concepts or ideas based on some of the questions I'm seeing come through. I mean, one of the challenges that every agent is struggling with right now, and one of the things that I saw you guys post questions about is, for example, agents are struggling with inventory. Agents are struggling to find people who are ready to sell their property. There's not enough houses on the market. So one of the things that we need to identify is if the agents need business, if they need listings, if they need new buyer leads, one of the simplest answers and questions that we can often think about is who needs you? Now, if you find a need, you can find a lead, and it's kind of like mining. You know, you're going to strip out tens of thousands of tons of, 10, 15, 20 tons of earth to put it into a complicated wash plant system and filter down. If you're mining for gold, for example, you're going to move 15, 20 tons of earth to put it into this wash plant system through a couple of days, and it's going to filter down into a couple of nuggets of gold that are worth, $1,600, $1,700 an ounce right now, which can turn into millions of dollars if you do it at a high enough volume. So what it really comes down to is we're not looking for the earth, the tons of dirt, the tons of raw dirt. We're looking for the nuggets. So sometimes it's a filtering process. So the first thing we need to identify and how to find those people who are in a position to move is think about this for a second. Who's going to benefit from changing their housing situation? The first step to think about is life events. In next week's webinar, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this from the consumer level. But just think about the life changes that make somebody, that put somebody in a position to want to improve their housing situation. The obvious one, renters to buyers. They're spending $1,000 a month on rent. That's $60,000 over 5 years, literally down somebody else's toilet. If you're in a higher index market where your rent is $1,500 to $2,000 a month, imagine how fast they burn through $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 instead of investing it in their growth for the future and building equity for their family. Second key area is family size. The house that, the young couple that bought their first starter home 5 to 7 years ago, and now they've got 2 kids and they can't fit in that 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom condo. They've outgrown the home they're in, but they haven't upgraded for whatever reason. Corporate relocations. How many people have changed jobs in the last, couple of years due to the recession and everything? And how many people to take, to get employment and get their income back on track had to take a job that now leaves them with kind of an ugly commute? They're spending they're spending an hour and a half car one way, burning that extra $500, $600, $700 a month in gas more than they probably need to because they live 30, 40, 50 miles from where they work. How much easier would it be for them to move to a neighborhood closer to their employment if the employment's stabilized and all that kind of stuff? And then, of course, just general lifestyle needs. The couple that raised their home in the big 4,000 square foot, 3-story house, that the kids are grown and gone and in their 20s and 30s with families of their own, and the couple is in their 60s and they want to have the freedom to travel, maybe reduce their expense a little bit, or move to a home that's a little bit smaller but maybe a higher level of luxury with the same elements of same budget, but something that's maybe a 10 home on a golf course in a maintenance-free community with security, so they're more able to travel without the fear of somebody breaking into their house. All of these kind of life events are what trigger somebody an opportunity to buy a home. Now, why am I talking about this? That's a great question, Steve. I'll make sure I get to that one when we hit the Q&A here in just a second. When it comes down to it, what we're really talking about is what are those lifestyle needs and how do we find them. Part of the reason for this, and part of the reason I suggest that you think about this and that you have this discussion with your business development partners, is this can be a catalyst for spinning off into a whole bunch of other marketing ideas and business development and intake strategies that can create a much higher volume of activity. If an agent is having struggles with inventory, for example, where can you find the people who bought between 02 and 07 who have, first-time homebuyers who bought homes in between 02 and 07? Entry-level markets are one of the most challenged areas for inventory in most communities around the United States. Right? We need that entry-level inventory, real estate-wise. So the families that bought, and so like, for example, think about condo projects that went under construction and were sold between 02 and 07. Think about new construction neighborhoods, particularly if they were entry-level new construction, 13 to 1,500 square foot tract home neighborhoods that were built and sold between 02 and 07. Work with your local title company, work with your existing realtors, work with home builders or home building association representatives in your community to identify those neighborhoods and do a little bit more of a strategic marketing campaign to those folks. And we'll talk about how to approach them here in just a minute. But why? Well, one of the reasons is we look at this as a challenge or as an opportunity, right? This is the Housing Affordability Index. This is actually pulled from the FRED data out of Federal Reserve information data resources. But the actual source is the National Association of Realtors Housing Index. Now, this index number never really meant a whole lot to me. What I look at is the actual charts, which tell you basically what percentage, well, first of all, what's the average home price of the average American home? What's the average income of the average American family, and what percentage of the income is needed to cover the mortgage payment based on the going rates at the time. Well, if you look at the last couple of months of last year, from October of 2012 to August of 2013, there was about a 4% increase in home affordability. Now, you could look at that as a negative, but you could also look historically and realize that home affordability is still much higher than it had been most of the last 25 years, 27 years. Yes, we've slid off a little bit, and actually we recouped some since the last time I printed this chart, but the reality is we're dealing with some of the best housing affordability in literally the last 70 to 80 years. I mean, for example, if you look at the long-term interest rates back to 1790, there's only been 1, 2, 3 periods where interest rates have been substantially below 5%. For the average American consumer with reasonable credit, you're still seeing loans close at less than 5% interest rates, which means we're dealing with rates that are as good as you'd have to go all the way back to the late 50s and early 60s to find rates that good, which means as far as how much house for the money a month a home buyer can get right now, we're at an absolute all-time high. So why do we want to make a difference? Next week's session, I'm going to go a lot deeper into this concept, but the reality is that we need to be doing everything in our power with, we have this knowledge of how much house for the money a month. I mean, literally, I did a study with even in a fairly high index market like the Northeast. I did a study for a client a couple of months ago of what does $2,500 a month buy you at 4.5% rate versus what does $2,500 a month buy you at 6.5% rate. The difference was $116,000 less house at a 6%. 4.5% P&I is a 4.5% is a $523,000 mortgage. $2,500 a month at 6.5% is only a $416,000 mortgage. Pretty big difference in housing affordability and how much money, house for the money a month that somebody could get in today's market. So how do we communicate that? Well, one of the best ways I've found is doing what we call home opportunity reviews. And what we're really talking about is, there's more than one way to catch a fish. There's more than one way to generate a lead. And we're talking about thinking on a radically different scale. And for example, let's say you go blue water fishing and you're trying to catch a fish, but you're trying to do it for a meal. I mean, if you're just going out for fun to have an afternoon and some fun in the sun, great, no big deal. But if you're really trying to eat that evening or to feed a family for a couple of weeks, there's a lot of things that can go wrong that keep the fish in the water instead of bringing them into the boat, right? So maybe using fishing with a net is a more reliable method. Now, you're going to bring up some trash that's got to be filtered out quickly, so you've got to have a system for that. But if you're talking about a regular, consistent poundage of fish, it's not a real expensive way of generating food for your family, would you agree net fishing is a pretty more reliable way? But what if you started fishing with a massive net, more commercial size operation? What if you cast a net that big? Well, the reality is you couldn't cast it by yourself. You'd have to team up with some alliance partners. You'd have to put a team together of folks to be able to bring in a net that size. But what's the potential to do it on a much, much, much larger scale? So next week we'll talk a little bit about the home opportunity review. We'll talk a little bit more about what I call the Make a Difference Challenge and how we communicate this to consumers at the front line and how we can share that with business development partners. But imagine that you used a strategy similar to what financial planners have been using for years. What about offering a free home opportunity evaluation? Whether it's engaging your own past clients or helping your realtors engage with some of their own past clients, or whether it's reaching out to foreign clients, people you've not connected with yet, and talking to, for example, to one of the questions that popped up in the Q&A here, talking to business development partners or potential clients like renters. I mean, may not be the funnest way to approach it, but if I reached out to and in the phone book pulled up, opened the local phone book and looked for anybody that had the apartment number in their listing and started making phone calls to them, of course I would cross-check it across the do not call list, but the reality is if I started making those approach calls to them and I said, Mr. Renter, at the end of the day, I don't know if this is an opportunity for you or not, but we've recognized that right now is an all-time high of housing affordability. We're finding many families are able to get significantly more house for the money a month, and in often cases a nicer home for less money a month than they're spending on rent, and they'd be building equity for their future. So we've put together a very simple, easy, no cost and obligation service we call a home opportunity evaluation. There's really 3 steps to get started. One, I need to run through a quick set of questions with you about what you're looking to accomplish, when your time horizon is, and what's open to you. Second, I need to do a little bit of research for you offline, see what's available to you. And third, I need to get back together with you at a scheduled time and date where I can walk you through the next steps. Do you have a few minutes to get the first step started? Now, just quick show of hands, how many of you, if you received a phone call similar to that in nature, would be willing to give me the benefit of the doubt and hang on for a few minutes and listen to what I have to say? Now, here's another trick to the puzzle. We know from National Association of Realtors statistics that the average American family moves every 5 to 7 years, and the reason they move every 5 to 7 years is usually associated with the fact they have changed, enough has changed in their life situation that that the home that they're in is no longer a good fit for them. So the reality is that we can go to them, and even with our past clients and even with our business development partners, potentially reach out to them and offer the home opportunity evaluation, the simple set of questions that identify whether that family has had enough change in their housing situation. And it could be done, it doesn't have to be scientific and using customized forms and everything like that. I mean, this is the Cadillac version if you're interested. But the reality is you could reach out to them with just as simple an approach as, and teach your agents to reach out to their past clients with a simple question like, how's your home treating you these days? Hey, I know it's been a couple of months since we touched base, or a couple of years since we touched base, but right now there's an amazing housing affordability. I just wanted to get back in touch with you, let you know that. Ask you a simple question, how's your house treating you? That could kick off a conversation that's going to help you identify The people that 5 to 7 years enough has changed in their life that the current home they're in is no longer a good fit for that family. And the reality of it is when we make that transition, then we give them the opportunity to identify whether they're one of the 15, well, by the way, statistically what that means is that 15 to 20% of the population is already thinking about doing something different with their housing situation. So out of 10 phone calls, 1 or 2 families are already thinking about doing something different. Out of every 20 phone calls, likelihood is you're going to find 2 to 4 families that want to do something different with their housing situation. So it is a bit of a numbers and filtering game, and it does need to be scaled to the volume of activity to where, when you're reaching out to them, that it may not be the right season for them to upgrade, but there's a lot of people that are renting out of apathy or out of a sense of false security. I mean, the reality is that, and this is one of the unfortunate elements, and we'll talk again a little bit more about this next week. The most unfortunate and challenging thing for me personally, one of the things that hurts me the most about what's going on in our industry right now is that the people who are most likely to benefit from the housing opportunity are completely oblivious to it. The guy who's just renting because he feels like it's the safe thing to do, he's just one of those guys who works hard, keeps his nose clean, pays his bills on time, and is just completely unaware of the fact that he could be building a much better future for himself and for his family if he were to take a little bit more initiative with it. So what I've been walking you through, guys, today is a purpose and a process for establishing what we want to accomplish and where we want to go. And because I had so much information I wanted to share with you guys today, I want you to go ahead and continue to post your questions in the Q&A. I've answered most of the ones that have been posted already through some of what I've covered up to this point. So I'm going to actually kind of skip over the Q&A section for a little bit, but then I'll open it up again at the end. But there's a couple of quick things that I need to share with you all before the top of the hour here. One is that this is actually embedded in a 5-step process we call the Power of Growth transformational growth process. This is a process that can be utilized with business development partners to very quickly filter out whether there's an alignment of personal goals and values, whether there are objectives and challenges that we can help them overcome, what the solutions to those challenges are, and how to build a step-by-step plan, and then how to reinforce the implementation of that plan over time. There's a systematic process that we've established called the Power Partner Development System that goes along with this, which is about where to find the prospects, how to identify them, how to warm them up, and develop a conversation with them that follows that power conversation outline pattern, and then drills down to a specific set of commitments and follow-up steps, kind of a flow-charted process that we can share with you. There's also 6 key conversations that you can use that will help you identify and clarify the issues and concerns where you can be of most value to those business development partners. Okay? Now, I've shared with you 2 of those conversations in today's program. I've talked a little bit about the value of your time conversation, what's important about how to get everybody pre-qualified and why I'm the best resource for that. We've talked about how to help them with their value proposition and what makes them unique and more valuable, and we'll dig a little deeper into that next week's program. We're talking about really frontline communication strategies with potential new borrowers or new home buyers or sellers. And then there's a couple more here that we'll introduce you to over the next couple of weeks as we continue this style of programming. But more importantly, what we're really talking about is we're talking about the old cliche, and every time I use this, everybody gives me some little bit of grief about it, is, you've all heard Einstein's basic concept of the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So the question I have for all of you is, are you going to continue to use the same approaches that you've been using up to this point that have produced a transactional-based relationship where you're only as good as your last deal and they're constantly comparing you against the other 500 loan officers who promised the same thing and most of them failed to deliver it? Or are you ready to begin the process of starting to go down a different path and looking at a different strategy that's going to produce better results for you? The reality is you have the opportunity to participate in some programming upcoming that will be highly valuable to helping you achieve those goals. And hopefully the information I've shared with you today has stirred some emotion and some thought process that I want to encourage you to take some action with as we wrap up today's sessions, but there's a couple of key things. If you want more information about how we at Maximum Acceleration can help you speed up that process and drill down through the assessment, planning, and execution phases of growth, and really develop a cycle of transformation that's going to create new habits that stick long-term, that create rapid growth and maximum acceleration in your business, where we're achieving 50, 80, 100, 200% growth year over year in a very short period of time. One of the best options you have available to be able to do that is to take advantage of our Planning to Win series. Now, we started the series in conjunction with a number of large national sales conferences that have been going on over the last couple of years. The foundational materials for this program were what was the core components of the business planning series, the Business Plan 2006, 2007, 2008, the Mastery Business Plan series 2009 through 2011 series, was the construct and the formation of this system that we walk you through in this program. So I want you to take just a minute and go to this website, www.mxlcoach.com/win. But I want you to recognize and understand that there's two different ways you can participate. One is the live workshop tour, which is going to walk you through a step-by-step process to build your strategic growth strategy that's going to maximize your performance and growth results for 2014. You're going to hear from some amazing, great speakers like Mr. Michael Mayer, and the last of the event series, which there might be a few more that we'll be adding in March or April on demand. By the way, if you do have a city you want us to bring this live program to, certainly give our team a call, and we'll be happy to talk with you about how to orchestrate that for you and maybe some of your core business development partners if you're interested. Beyond that, though, I got to tell you that this is probably the best $100 you can invest, and there is a way to get access to it for as little as $97. But not only do you have the opportunity to participate live at the Phoenix event, which is going to be in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, February 13th, we are also going to be doing a live streaming broadcast of that event that you can participate through online from wherever you are. So if you want to be able to get access to that programming, you can go to the mxlcoach.com/win website. You can click on the live training or the web streaming. That'll take you to a shopping cart where you can then register for that programming. And I'll tell you what, guys, this is a program that used to sell for the cheapest tickets we could get anybody. Even our active coaching members were spending $5.99 to go to this conference. There are other coaching companies doing a one-day event a little bit later in the spring here with a similar focus and nature, and they're charging over $700 for that one-day event. Our regular pricing on the event is $197 for a ticket. There is early bird specials going on through end of next week that are available for an additional $50 off that. Plus, if you use a discount code from either one of our great vendors like MySmartBlog, use discount code MSB, it'll knock an additional $50 off the ticket price. So literally, for $97 compared to the $700-something from other coaching firms that are out there, you can get access to a one-day build your success plan, learn how to create depth and synergy with your relationships and business development partners. And you got to ask yourself the question, can I afford not to? Especially when it's offered in a live streaming format where you really don't have any travel expense, just the commitment of a day of your time. And if you're interested in, by the way, hosting a watch party type event, we have some materials and resources we can provide you that will help you facilitate that if you're interested. Also, make sure you contact our team. If you're already at the point of deciding that this is the strategy you want to take in 2014 and you really want the help, guidance, and support of how to do this at a higher level, there's one other opportunity I want to introduce you to, which is if you want to find out a little bit more about the one-on-one or group coaching programs that we offer or any of the other video material programs, there's a couple of different options for how to get access to that. One is we do a live interactive coaching demo a couple of times a month. The next one is actually scheduled for February 11th, which is Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central, same time as this, due to time conversions. Basically a one-hour program where you do an overview of the coaching program, what you get with the coaching program. You'll get to see some live coaching interaction with a couple of volunteer participants. You're also welcome to participate in that if you want and get some specific hands-on guidance on one of your bigger challenges. And of course, we'll talk you through what the investment looks like and whether it's the right time to move forward or not. If you don't want to wait that long, if you're ready to go and you're pretty sure that you want the help, the accountability, the resource support, and the guidance that can come from growing this type of a program, then the next best step to introduce yourself to is we offer a strategy session, which is a one-on-one consultation with one of our maximum acceleration coaches. We'll talk you through a little bit what's going on in your business and help you understand when and how is the right time to move forward. We'll help you create a plan of action for your growth and success. Okay? If you're interested in participating in that one-on-one program, if you're really pretty sure that you're the top 1%, you're one of those folks who's really serious about taking your business to the next level, we don't accept everybody in the program, and we only have a limited capacity right now. We only have availability for about another 25 members with our current coaching staff. We're adding staff as we go, but our current staff loads, with their current client loads already, we do not have that many seats. So we are fairly selective in it, but if you are serious about taking your business to the next level, if you are really wanting the hands-on support, guidance, and accountability of some of what we've talked about in today's program, reach out to us and let us know that you're serious and that you're interested, and we'll be happy to invest some time in working with you. Of course, there's no cost or obligation for the service. It's just the right thing to do to help you identify if coaching is the right thing to help you get your business to the next level faster. So you can go and you can register through the website, mxlcoach.com/strategy. Or you can go ahead and just tag us here in the Q&A. Post the best phone number or email address for our follow-up team so they can reach out to you and get that one-on-one appointment scheduled with one of our coaches, which is probably the fastest and easiest way to identify if coaching is the right fit for you. Otherwise, for those of you who've tuned in for today's program and this is your first exposure to some of the maximum acceleration programming that we offer, and you'd like more information about some of our other strategies, feel free to reach out to us or check out the website. You can find out a little bit more about our programming and our offerings that are available to you. But the last thing I want you to do is you've invested just a hair over an hour of your time at this point into this program. I want you to make sure, though, that you've gotten some great ideas. Hopefully I've talked to you about some strategies that will enable you to think about how to create that one-on-one as 11 type of effect. Practical reality is, though, is ideas without action are useless. I don't care how powerful an idea is, it has no value to you if you don't do something with it. So, I wouldn't be doing my job as a coach if I didn't encourage you to create an action plan for yourself. So before you jump off this webinar, before you pick up the next phone call or respond to the next email, take 3 minutes for yourself to lock in some of the best ideas you've gained from today's program and begin to think about how you can articulate or execute that idea. So ask yourself these 4 quick questions. 1, what was the most valuable thing you heard in this program? Start with 1 idea. You can always come back to the other 50 ideas later. You'll have access to the recording of the program for use in the future. But what was the 1 most valuable thing you heard in this program? 2, what action do you need to take to make that idea a part of your daily business? What is the next best step or the best next step? Maybe it's going back to the recording and studying the section of the approach. I gave you a script or conversation outline for how to approach agents and how to set a different expectation for the type of conversation you want to create with them. Maybe it's blocking out 30 minutes to review and practice that, jot out the bullet points of that conversation outline for yourself, and then start executing it. Step 3. By when will you have that action item completed? Remember the Brigham Young study, if you want a 95% chance of implementation, well, 60% chance is draft out what your action plan is and set a specific target date for completion. If you want a 95% chance of accountability, decide who you're going to tell about that goal and ask you to hold accountable. And you want them to follow up with you on a specific date and time. You want to create a deadline for yourself for completion. The reason for that is it's so easy to break the promises we make to ourselves. It's so much harder to break the promises we make to somebody else. Now think about this analogy for just a second. Let's say I want to lose some weight as a New Year's resolution. So I go out and I start jogging January 2nd. I go way further than I probably should or have energy or muscle strength to do. January 3rd, I don't go quite as far. January 4th, I only barely make it around the block. January 5th, it's cold and it's wet and it's nasty outside and every muscle in my body aches. I really don't feel like getting up and going, so I hit the snooze button, roll back to sleep, and never go jogging again. But what about an alternative? What if I told a buddy at the Christmas Eve party that I wanted to start jogging, and he said, that's a great idea. Why don't we start after the 1st? So it's January 5th, and it's cold and sweat and it's nasty outside, and every muscle in my body aches, and I really don't want to go jogging. But I know my buddy's going to be on my doorstep at 5:30 in the morning to go running. Because of the promise I made to him, I likely will get up and go. You see, it's so easy to break the promises we make to ourselves. It's so much harder to break the promises we make to somebody else we trust, respect, and are committed to developing. So even just that synergy that can be created from that accountability, when you come up with great ideas with agents and you set a plan of action and you make a commitment to follow through on those ideas or actions, you know, whether it's door knocking in target neighborhoods, whether it's, you know, door hanger flyers in apartment complexes, whether it's home opportunity workshops with targeted rental neighborhoods, whether it is, you know, whether it's leveraging insurance agents' databases of non-homeowners with hundreds of potential families that could be a warm approach. There's a whole host of ideas that we'll talk about next week that are a little bit more at the consumer tactical level. But what I want you to begin to be thinking about this week are, who's your target list of partners? Who are the people that you want to reach out to, and who are the people that you can make a true difference with? And how can I begin to start that conversation with them about transforming that relationship from one of being a vendor to one of being a true partner and advisor? So guys, with that being said, I'm going to leave the mic open. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point, but we're going to leave the mic open for, I'm going to hang on here for just a few more minutes.